The story begins with the founding myth of the Vista Empire. Ages ago, the supreme god sent animal servants to guide humanity. Once their job was done, these servants became spirits of the land. Today, the empire's noble families worship these ancestral gods, each taking the form of their house's symbol. The imperial family is the snake, while the powerful guardians of the north are the gray wolf family, symbolized by, you guessed it, the wolf. We cut to the Rexy estate, where 9-year-old Shyla Rexy is being sent off to get married. Her maid, Ellie, is crying her eyes out, worried about Shyla being all alone in the cold north. But Shyla? She's tough. She tells Ellie to save the tears and worry about herself instead. With a final farewell, she's off. The Rexy family are merchants who basically bought a fake lineage claiming they're reincarnations of a moon rabbit. Everyone calls them the shameless rabbits. Why would the honorable, powerful House Grey Wolf agree to marry their son to a shameless rabbit? Shyla doesn't care about the politics. To her, this marriage is a golden ticket to escape her controlling father. Plus, her husband-to-be, Callian Grey Wolf, is only 7. She figures if she plays her cards right and acts like a good big sister, she can secure a comfy life. She's actually excited to meet him. The wedding ceremony begins, and it's a disaster. The officiant announces the couple, but only Shyla is standing there. The groom, Callian, didn't even bother to show up. The guests are whispering about how shabby the event is and how insulting it is for the groom to be absent. Shyla remembers the terrifying gaze of the current Duke Grey Wolf and realizes something fishy is going on. She's told Lord Callian is waiting in the bridal chamber. Shyla steels her nerves and enters, but the room is empty. Suddenly, she catches a whiff of something nasty. A pungent, bitter smell like dried corn. Her mind starts racing. Why did the predator family choose a herbivore family? A horrifying rumor pops into her head. Some predator families still practice sacrificing herbivores to their gods. Shyla panics, convinced she's not there to be a bride, but to be rabbit stew. Just as she turns to flee, a loud "ah-woo" echoes through the room and she trips. She hears whimpering and thumping. She assumes it's wild wolves outside, but then she spots something on the rug. It's a tiny, white, fluffy puppy curling up and crying. Shyla approaches and notices his sky blue eyes, the exact same shade as the Grey Wolf line. She realizes this puppy is Callian. This changes everything. In this world, there are rare cases called oddities, people literally born as the animal of their house. It's considered a huge disgrace for a noble to be a beast. Shyla knows this intimately because she is an oddity too, a rabbit who learned to maintain human form to hide her shame. She realizes Duke Grey Wolf rushed this marriage because his heir, Callian, is an oddity who hasn't mastered shifting yet. At 7 years old, he should be a human boy learning etiquette, but instead, he's a whimpering pup with floppy ears. Shyla reaches out, realizing he missed the wedding because he couldn't turn human. She asks, "Haven't you been able to take human form yet?" Immediately, the little wolf snaps. He growls, lunges at her, and shouts, "Don't you dare look down on me!" Before we get back to the bridal chamber, we get a quick history lesson. The Grey Wolf heir is born with the fate of the Black Wolf, a dark warrior prophesied to vanquish evil. Heavy stuff for a 7-year-old. Back in the room, the tension is, well, adorable. Callian is growling, "Don't look down on me!" But Shyla is just internally squealing over how cute he is. She tries to bond with him by revealing a massive secret. She used to be an oddity too. She was a rabbit until a few years ago. To prove it, she gets startled and pop, her rabbit ears spring out. Callian doesn't buy the camaraderie. He's convinced Shyla hates the marriage because his family is intimidating, or maybe she thinks her family, the shameless rabbits, aren't good enough. Overwhelmed by insecurity, the little puppy lets out a sad whimper and scrambles away, hiding in a dusty storeroom. Shyla chases him down, calling him a coward for hiding. Cornered, Callian drops a bombshell. He didn't ghost the wedding to be mean. He stayed away so the marriage wouldn't count. He assumes Shyla is miserable, so he's already arranged an escape. He tells her to go to the first floor of the East Wing, find a man named Henry, and take a carriage back to the capital. Shyla is stunned. He hated the idea of marrying her so much that he pre-planned her exit. She decides to teach him a lesson. She says, "Fine. Farewell, Callian," and walks away. Callian, thinking he's alone, peeks out with sad, teary eyes, whimpering, "Is she really gone?" Swish! Shyla spins around and pounces. "Gotcha, you little rascal!" She slams the door and locks it. She tells him straight, "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home now." She knows if she returns to her father, she's dead meat. She resolves to stay, dig her heels in, and become the true power in this household. That night, Shyla's ambition is haunted by a nightmare. We learn the real reason she can't go back. She dreams of her father threatening her about Lila. It seems Shyla has a sister, Lila, who is still a rabbit, an oddity whose existence must be hidden at all costs to prevent the family's ruin. Shyla wakes up gasping, wondering if Lila is safe. The next morning, the door is open and Callian is gone. The head maid, Sandra, comes in to help Shyla dress. Shyla asks casually if she's seen Callian. Sandra's reply is unsettling. The servants have never seen the young master. Not even once. Shyla starts to wonder, was that puppy really him? Finally, it's time for breakfast. Shyla walks into the dining hall and meets Duke Christopher Greywolf. The man is terrifying. His aura is so overwhelming that Shyla freezes. He doesn't waste time on pleasantries. He stares her down and demands, "You will answer my question truthfully." Last night, Shyla sits before the terrifying Duke Greywolf, trembling under his gaze. He doesn't waste time with small talk. He asks, "Did you have a chance to meet my son?" Shyla nods and, risking it all, admits, "I did. Is it all right for me to say how utterly adorable he is?" The Duke doesn't smile. Instead, he reveals he knows her deepest secret. "You two were born an oddity, I hear." He leans in with a dark warning. Unless she wants to see their families destroyed, Callion's condition must remain a secret. He points out that since she successfully became human, she must help Callion do the same, and fast. Just as Shyla prepares to be intimidated further, breakfast arrives. To her shock, it's not a plate of raw meat. It's a fresh chicory salad. The Duke had special vegetarian dishes prepared just for her, knowing a rabbit was coming to a land of carnivores. Shyla realizes that beneath his terrifying aura, the Duke is actually thoughtful. Shyla takes the opportunity to grill the head butler, Antonio. She asks why the other servants act like Callion doesn't exist. Antonio explains that the Duke didn't forbid Callion from leaving his room. The boy locks himself away. He refuses to let anyone see him in his bestial form. Shyla realizes Callion isn't being oppressed by his father. He's hiding out of his own shame. She decides right then, if she wants to survive here, she needs to befriend that stubborn puppy immediately. She marches straight to Callion's bedroom. The door is open, but the room is pitch black and gloomy. She spots a white ball of fur on the rug. Callion! But the moment he sees her, he panics and darts away, hiding under the furniture. Suddenly, a voice booms. "Who goes there?" A man steps out, trying to act like a polished servant. "It's Henry," the man Callion told her to find earlier. Shyla sees right through him. She points out his rough attire and realizes he's actually the gamekeeper, the only person allowed in because Callion hates maids. Henry sighs, dropping the act. He tells her he's here to fulfill Callion's wish, to send her back home. Henry reveals just how desperate Callion is to get rid of her. The boy has prepared everything, a disguise cloak, a spare carriage, a map of the route, and a bag of secret funds. He even offered to send more money later so she could live comfortably in the countryside. Shyla stares at the preparations, her heart sinking. She wonders, does he despise me that much? But she clenches her fist. She looks Henry in the eye and says, "Stop. I never said I was leaving." Shyla looks at the escape money and the map Henry offered and gives a firm answer. "Absolutely not!" Henry is baffled. He claims Callion actually seemed quite taken with her when he saw her portrait. So why push her away? Henry explains the weight of House Greywolf's history. For 400 years, there has never been a single divorce in the family. They are renowned for absolute loyalty to their spouses. Because Callion feels broken, an oddity unworthy of her. He wants to annul the marriage now so she can find a better husband. He's trying to set her free out of love and shame. Shyla isn't having any of that self-pity. She smiles and declares, "I happen to be quite pleased with this marriage, so I'm never returning to the capital." She asks Henry, who seems to be the only one Callion tolerates, to teach her how to get close to the stubborn puppy. The next day, Shyla marches back to Callion's room. She announces, "I'm coming in," and tells him she's going to clean his filthy room. She's used to this. Her father never assigned servants to her sister Lila, so Shyla is a pro at caretaking. She figures handling a little wolf pup will be a piece of cake, but the room is a disaster. The dust is ancient. Shyla calls for backup. Her maid, Hannah arrives, shocked to see her noble lady scrubbing floors. Shyla asks for supplies, and Hannah hands over a secret weapon. It turns out to be a bottle of high-class special premium legendary cleaning detergent made by Shyla's own father, Count Rexy. Shyla rolls her eyes at her father's overpriced marketing scam, but grudgingly admits it works wonders. Made while they clean, Shyla asks Hannah why she's helping, since Shyla never ordered her to. Hannah gets flustered and claims she's just a self-serving opportunist. She explains a well-known fact. Greywolf dukes always adore their wives to the point of granting any wish. Therefore, the Duchess holds the true power in the castle. Hannah is just trying to get on the winning side early. Shyla bursts out laughing. She tells Hannah that a true opportunist wouldn't be so thoughtful as to leave a laundry cart for her or worry about her rest. Touched by the maid's clumsily hidden kindness, Shyla promises to help Hannah rise through the ranks later. But then, Shyla's expression turns serious. She asks Hannah, "You don't know what's inside Callion's room, do you?" When Hannah says no, Shyla whispers a chilling detail. "Well, I saw it. In that room, on the ceiling, a vast masterpiece shows the Hemlock Mountains, and at the center stands the legendary lone warrior who wields the steel sword of the supreme god to crush a demonic horde. This tale is known as the North's most cherished heroic myth, the legend of the Black Wolf. But the narration explains that myths often distort the truth. It shifts to the winter of 1277, when the Duchess, pregnant and surrounded by prophecy, was told her child would become a hero. When the child was finally born, the world did not receive the mighty black wolf it expected. Instead, the baby appeared as an oddity, a white wolf. The story moves back to the present, where Hannah, the maid, nervously asks Shyla a heavy question about how one would feel if they were born as the hero of a prophecy, but turned out to be an oddity instead. Hannah immediately panics after speaking, fearing she has said too much about the young master. Shyla, however, sits quietly with wide golden eyes and admits that if she had been in Callion's place, knowing her birth had caused disappointment, she would have been utterly heartbroken. Later that night, under the moonlight, little Callion hides under a curtain when Henry, the gamekeeper, visits him. Henry delivers a mysterious package and remarks that the item was easy to obtain, but strange for someone like Callion to request. Callion tries to intimidate him, even though his fierce roar comes out as an adorable growl. Henry quickly leaves. The next morning, Callion waits under the tablecloth, his ears twitching at approaching footsteps. He rushes out, hoping it is Shyla, only to find a random maid. He freezes in disappointment. Anxiety begins to overtake him when he realizes Shyla has never missed a single day of visiting him. He fears she might have returned to the capital without saying goodbye, and though he tries to convince himself he should be happy, he is clearly miserable. A worse thought strikes him. Perhaps she is still somewhere in the castle but lost and in danger. Imagining her crying for help, he panics and dashes out to find her. Meanwhile, Shyla is completely fine, just exhausted. She has spent the entire day touring the Inner Bailey with the strict head maid and then studying the duchy's finances with Antonio. Determined to secure her place here, she returns to Callion's room only to find the door wide open, triggering her own panic. She soon finds Callion running down the hallway toward her. They both stop abruptly, staring at each other. Callion appears shocked that she has not returned to the capital. Shyla realizes he went searching for her because he believed she had left. He denies it, though his wildly wagging tail exposes the truth. Shyla nearly melts from his cuteness but restrains herself to avoid disrupting their fragile alliance. Shyla takes him back to the room and resumes cleaning. Only one eyesore remains, a battered wardrobe that seems out of place. She asks for permission to open it, and Callion coldly tells her to do whatever she wants. When she opens it, she is stunned to find it filled with beautiful baby clothes, brand new outfits that have never been worn. She immediately understands that these garments belong to the child the Duchess prepared for before her death, because when an oddity is born, the mother's fate is sealed. Shyla discovers a note addressed to baby Callion, written in the winter of 1277, and realizes these untouched clothes symbolize the grief of a mother he never met and the weight of his own birth. Shyla closes the wardrobe with a heavy heart, then marches to the sofa and throws herself down. She announces her decision to stay there for the night. She no longer cares about legends or expectations. She is determined to protect the Callion she has come to care for, regardless of what anyone else says. Hours later, she wakes in complete darkness, disturbed by an odd smell in the room. She hears soft rustling and chewing. When she looks toward the floor, she finds Callion glowing faintly blue in the shadows, his eyes shining as he consumes the contents of the mysterious package Henry brought earlier. She stares in shock, wondering what he could possibly be eating. In the dark, the smell becomes so foul that Shyla instinctively pinches her nose. She looks down and sees the glowing white puppy happily chewing something crunchy, completely oblivious to the stench. She wonders how he can even tolerate it with his heightened wolf senses. Acting quickly, she grabs him and forces him to spit it out. When he coughs up the pieces, she realizes something heartbreaking. Under all that fluffy fur, he is shockingly thin, almost weightless. The dropped bag spills across the floor, revealing garlic. Shyla freezes as her mind labels it devil's seed, a plant rabbits like her can't even handle. She panics, wondering if someone forced this on him. But Callion tearfully admits he chose it himself. He had heard a merchant's tale claiming that a bear becomes human after eating 100 cloves of garlic. Shyla is stunned to realize he has been torturing himself with this nonsense. He confesses he has managed only 81 cloves because it is unbearable. She learns he has been starving himself on garlic for 3 months and pulls him into a distressed hug. Then an idea strikes her. Count Rexy had at least taught her how to lie boldly. She pulls back and claims she knows how one becomes human, insisting she herself had once been a rabbit. Callion instantly stops crying. She adopts a wise expression and declares that if he follows her instructions, he too will transform. Callion complains she never mentioned this earlier, and she silently blames him for hiding under the bed every day. When he begs to know the method, she announces that the first step is simply to eat properly. Soon, he is devouring a plate of meat with desperate enthusiasm, his tail wagging wildly. Meanwhile, the Duke eats alone, noting that Shyla now takes meals in the bedroom. Servants whisper about her unusual sharpness. She hired help on her own, cleaned the room, and even coaxed the young master out. The Duke quietly concludes that the marriage might not have been a mistake, though he finds it odd that she never behaves like a child. Back in the bedroom, Callian refuses to step on the scale and begins doubting her words. Shyla pretends to be deeply offended and proposes a naming contract. She orders him to call her Shasha, claiming it is a special pet name, and tries giving him cute options. He rejects all of them, insisting he needs a cool wolf name. She finally offers Leon, and his ears perk up in approval. She declares that, as Shasha and Leon, they are now bound, and demands he swear never to betray her. Callian raises a paw and vows loyalty, though Shyla is too distracted by his soft pink paw pads to hear him clearly. She forces herself to focus and announces she will now prove her claim. She steps back, taps the floor, and vanishes in a puff of smoke. A tiny golden-eared rabbit appears in her place. Callian stares in astonishment, realizing the rabbit is truly his Shasha. The smoke settled and revealed Shyla in her true rabbit form, a tiny golden bundle with drooping ears. Leon stared at her in stunned silence, until the realization hit him, after which he ran circles around the room in wild excitement, unable to contain himself. For Shyla, however, the scene was terrifying. From her small vantage point, Leon looked enormous, with claws that seemed dangerously sharp and fangs that gleamed whenever he breathed. She tried to maintain her authority, insisting he keep his distance, though she was trembling the entire time. Leon, thrilled beyond reason, ignored her warning and crouched down to sniff her repeatedly. He seemed mesmerized, claiming she smelled like sweet vanilla, and even asking if he could lick her once. Shyla panicked and refused, dodging his attempts as he continued showering her with praise, his enthusiasm completely overwhelming for someone her size. To regain control, she transformed back into her human form with a flourish and began teaching him the method to become human. With total seriousness, she instructed him to clench his bottom and focus intensely while declaring he was human. Leon obeyed, squeezing his eyes shut and channeling all his energy before rising onto his hind legs. He stood wobbling proudly, convinced he had succeeded, leaving Shyla speechless. Unable to tell him the truth, she simply hugged him. Delighted, he toppled her with affectionate licks, thrilled that she used his new pet name. When he finally fell asleep, Shyla sat at her desk and wrote a coded letter to her old nanny. She used a seemingly harmless phrase to secretly ask about her twin sister Lila, who was still imprisoned at Count Rexy's estate. The memory of Lila locked in a cage returned to her, and she acknowledged that bringing her north had been impossible due to the brutal journey. She resolved to grow influential enough within the Grey Wolf family to return someday and take her sister away safely. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Antonio entered, seeking to check on the young couple. Shyla responded calmly, mentioning that Leon had even climbed onto her lap. Antonio reacted with surprise, explaining no one had ever been allowed such closeness with the young master before. Taking the opportunity, Shyla gently asked why Leon avoided people. Antonio's expression shifted as he slowly revealed the truth. 5 years earlier, when Leon was only 2, he had been kidnapped by a maid. Shyla was described as staring at Antonio in horror when he revealed that a maid had once kidnapped Callian. Antonio was said to nod grimly as he explained that the maid had justified her actions by claiming the cute puppy looked lonely, so she had taken him home to adore him. Shyla was told that the truth had been far darker. A tiny 2-year-old Callian had been kept tied to a post in a filthy room, looking defeated. It was mentioned that the maid had only been banished rather than executed because Callian had begged for his identity to stay hidden. Shyla was then shown clutching her chest as she realized the painful irony. She understood that Callian despised being treated like a pet, but revealing that he was the Grey Wolf heir while trapped in a puppy's body would have been even more humiliating for him. She was described as recalling how often she had called him cute. With renewed determination, she asked Antonio to help the young master become who he was meant to be. After Antonio left, Shyla was described as stepping into action with bold confidence. She dramatically told Callian that she had discovered the reason he couldn't return to his human form. Callian was said to perk up as she announced that the issue was a lack of self-confidence, insisting that belief could turn even the fake into something real. She pointed at his tail dragging on the floor and urged him to hold it high, wanting him to carry himself like the magnificent wolf he truly was. Shyla then shifted into full instructor mode and introduced what she called the first step, scent marking. Callian was described as staring at her in confusion when she explained that marking territory was essential for confidence, because no one could feel strong while hiding under the bed. She transformed into a rabbit to demonstrate the stance, explaining that one simply squatted and urinated. Callian was portrayed as horrified and embarrassed, refusing in a small, shaky voice while she kept urging him to try. Suddenly, Antonio returned. Shyla quickly changed back to human form and told Callian to act natural. Antonio stepped inside and immediately froze when an overwhelming stench hit him, though Shyla innocently commented that the room felt different. Antonio, pale and sweating, made an excuse and hurried out, leaving Shyla puzzled about his behavior. Moments later, Shyla finally understood when a foul smell enveloped her. She was shown discovering a puddle beneath the bed, and Callian shyly admitted that he had followed her instructions. Although the odor was awful, Shyla forced herself to praise him enthusiastically, reminding herself that his confidence was her priority. Callian blushed and downplayed his actions, but then looked at her with hopeful puppy eyes, and softly asked whether she had been about to hug him just moments before. Callian was described as sulking deeply, complaining that Shyla had stroked his fur so much the previous day but hadn't touched him even once today. Shyla was said to freeze on the spot, stunned that he seemed genuinely upset about not being petted. Internally, she wondered how much self-control she had been exercising just to avoid doing exactly that. Callian then lowered his head with drooping ears and quietly asked whether she no longer liked him. Before she could answer, he accused her of only liking him when he was in his rabbit form. Shyla tried to explain that she simply felt protective when he was small like a rabbit, but Callian sharply declared that she was lying. He insisted she thought he smelled delicious and claimed she only wanted to eat him. Shyla reacted in horror as he dramatically collapsed to the floor, telling her that if she really wanted to devour him, he wouldn't resist. She grabbed him and shouted that she had never wanted to eat him, finally pulling him into the hug he had clearly been yearning for. Once the misunderstanding had passed, Shyla was described as comforting him gently. She told him he was like a gemstone in the rough and that she was the alchemist who would polish him into a shining jewel. Callian looked up at her with bright eyes, declaring that he wanted to become a smart boy worthy of her. When he asked how she knew so much, she claimed she had read it in books. Only then did she realize, with surprise, that her own husband, heir to the duchy, did not know how to read. Later that night, Shyla decided to improve his sleeping conditions. His bed was an old, dirty mat with a terrible smell. When she picked it up to wash it, something clinked and fell out, a gold ring with a large yellow gem. She recognized it as the wedding ring she had chosen and realized Callian had hidden it in his bedding to protect, since it obviously couldn't fit a puppy's paw. Holding the ring tightly, she resolved to find a way for him to carry it one day. The scene then shifted to the enormous castle library at night. Shyla, determined to learn more, found the doors locked but spotted a narrow crack in the wall. She transformed into her rabbit form and squeezed through. After slipping inside, she froze when she saw Duke Christopher standing in the moonlight. She remembered she was forbidden from turning into a rabbit outside her room, and discovery would mean being sent back to her abusive father. Terrified, she pressed herself against the wall. The Duke glanced down briefly but walked past without reacting. Shyla dashed away into the darkness, her heart pounding. Safe inside the library, she returned to human form and began searching for information. She found a book titled Understanding Species, the Wolf, and quickly discovered she had been making mistakes. She read that a wolf's tail naturally hangs downward and realized she had been forcing Callian to hold it up unnaturally in the name of confidence. She also learned that wolf fur changes with age, and many mature wolves turn gray or black. The thought made her wonder whether Callian might grow into the legendary black wolf after all. Growing tired, she marked her page with a small four-leaf clover she had found and sneaked back out. Not long after, Duke Christopher entered the library. He walked to the spot where Shyla had been reading, picked up the book she left behind, and opened it to the clover-marked page. His cold blue eyes lingered on the delicate leaf as he quietly murmured, "A clover?" Meanwhile, Shyla hands a stack of ledgers to the head butler, Antonio, asking him to review her private funds. Antonio is baffled because neither the head butler nor the Duke ever asked her to do this, but Shyla insists. She wants a clear record to prove she isn't wasting money on frivolous things. She proceeds to give Antonio a lecture on economics, explaining the difference between consumption and expenditure. According to Shyla, buying 30 yards of lace is consumption, a desire she can live without. But redecorating Callian's room or buying him delicious lamb chops, that falls under expenditure, an absolute necessity. Antonio is thoroughly impressed by her meticulous organization, noting that everything is perfectly categorized. Shyla proudly attributes this to her merchant background, but then she throws a little shade at the household, asking if they haven't been neglecting Callian a bit too much since she is the one buying all his stuff. Antonio then asks how she and the young master are getting along. Shyla casually mentions that things are great. She's even teaching him to read and write, and he's learning incredibly fast. This news hits Antonio like a ton of bricks. He is shocked because, apparently, no tutor has ever succeeded in teaching Callian before. Usually, they just get chased away or bitten. Seeing this miracle, Antonio decides to ask a massive favor. He wants to create an opportunity for Callian to finally step outside and be introduced as the heir to Duke Greywolf. But before that can happen, there is one major, slightly embarrassing hurdle to clear. Antonio reveals that ever since Callian's nanny left 5 years ago, no one has been able to bathe him. Shyla freezes. 5 years? The realization hits her like a physical blow. That foul corn chip stench she's been smelling on Callian wasn't just dog smell. It was 5 years of unwashed grime. She realizes she has no choice but to accept this stinky mission. Shyla heads to Callian's room, and the moment she opens the door, the little white wolf is there to greet her, wagging his tail. He's been waiting closer to the door every day, clearly attached to her. Shyla playfully asks if he did his scent marking today, which makes the poor boy bashful, begging her not to ask about his dog-like habits. But the pleasantries end there. Shyla drops the hammer. "Let's go get you washed up." Callian freezes. He asks her to repeat herself, and when she yells, "It's time for a bath!" he panics. The chase is on! Callian tries to shuffle away, claiming he just wanted to sit over there, but Shyla calls his bluff. He bolts, and Shyla chases him around the room, shouting, "You little rascal, get back here!" Callian tries to negotiate, arguing that she just said he was cute, so hygiene shouldn't matter. Shyla counters that he reeks, which shocks him to his core. He had no idea he was the smelly kid. Desperate to escape the tub, he scrambles away, but in the chaos, Shyla slips on the rug and hits the floor with a loud thud. She cries out in pain, clutching her arm. Callian immediately stops running. Panic sets in as he realizes he might have hurt her. He rushes to her side, whimpering and apologizing profusely, terrified that he injured his fragile human wife. The moment he gets close enough, Shyla shouts, "Gotcha!" and grabs him. She admits she was faking the injury just to catch him. Instead of being mad, Callian looks genuinely relieved, beaming with happiness that he didn't actually hurt her. He promises to be more careful from now on because, in his eyes, Shyla is soft and delicate and could break easily. Shyla feels a pang of guilt for tricking such a sweet, foolish puppy. Finally, the bath happens, and it is gross. The water turns dark gray instantly. As Shyla scrubs years of filth out of his fur, Callian becomes surprisingly docile. He asks quietly, "If I wash, will I smell nice like you, Shasha?" When she says yes, he's happy because he wants to please her. Shyla notes that, compared to her twin sister Lila, who fought bath time like a demon, Callian is actually an angel. Later, Antonio reports back to Duke Greywolf. He tells the Duke that not only is Shyla teaching the young master to read, something no one else could do, but she even managed to bathe him. The Duke is impressed by Shyla's wisdom and frugal management, but mostly by the fact that his son is utterly devoted to her. He decides that it's time. He commands that Callian must attend the upcoming hunting festival banquet, the largest celebration in the North. Duke's internal monologue. He admits that he wasn't thrilled about Shyla's family initially. He didn't care about the rumors, calling them shameless rabbits. He only agreed to the marriage because he couldn't be picky given his son's condition. However, as he sits in the shadows, his expression darkens. He reveals that the thing that truly displeased him wasn't the rumors. It was Count Rexy himself. Shyla was actually the one Callian chose, even though the boy didn't realize at the time that he was marrying the girl from the portrait he admired. The Duke admits his options were limited due to Callian's condition, so he prioritized finding a bride his son desired rather than worrying about lineage. However, the Duke's internal monologue takes a disgusted turn when he thinks of Count Rexy. He recalls the Count laughing and calling his own daughter Shyla, a prize of the highest quality, and a rather useful piece of merchandise. The Duke is appalled that a father could speak of his child that way. He notes that despite the Count's claims of raising her with care, Shyla's behavior screams of pressure and conditioning. After all, what ordinary 9-year-old keeps a double-entry ledger for her allowance? He sighs, realizing that purchases like lace and dresses are considered expenditures for her dignity, not simple consumption, which just proves how transactional her upbringing was. Changing gears, the Duke discusses the upcoming hunting festival banquet with his butler, Antonio. Antonio asks if they should invite Lady Blanche, the Duke's former adopted daughter. The Duke coldly shuts that down, stating she is no longer a Grey Wolf since she married into the house of Count Piggy, yes, that is the real name, and resides there now. His focus is solely on Callian. He commands Antonio to ensure the boy attends the banquet because next year Callian will turn 8. That is the crucial age when the men of the North receive the call of the moon. Meanwhile, Shyla heads to Callian's room to check on him, but finds the little puppy looking gloomy and depressed. He isn't his usual cheerful self. Worried, Shyla asks if he's sick, panicking internally about whether she needs to call a human doctor or a vet, since he is technically a person but looks like a dog. Callian looks up with teary eyes and asks the heartbreaking question, "When will I be able to become human?" He lists all his efforts, eating his meals, marking his territory, and even reading books, yet he remains stuck in his wolf form. He desperately wants to be human like Shyla. Shyla tries to comfort him, telling him to have confidence and patience, and that his efforts will eventually be rewarded. But as she leaves, Shyla questions if she's being insensitive. It's been so long since she was stuck as a rabbit that she's forgotten the struggle of being an oddity. In a moment of empathy, she decides to transform into her rabbit form just one last time to remind herself what the world looks like from down there. Poof! She turns into a golden rabbit and immediately regrets it. The world is terrifyingly massive. She realizes that if she couldn't turn back, the scariest part wouldn't be the size of things, but the fear that no one would recognize her. This gives her a revelation about Callian. If everyone knew the puppy was him and treated him with love, he wouldn't need to be afraid. She realizes the goal isn't just making him human, but helping him love himself as he is right now. Lost in thought, Rabbit Shyla turns a corner and thud. She runs smack into Hannah, her maid. There is a long, awkward silence as the maid stares at the golden rabbit in the snow. Hannah stammers, asking, "Did you see that?" before rapidly shaking her head and shouting that she didn't see anything and won't tell a soul. Shyla, panicking that her secret is out, drags Hannah inside, thinking, "I am never turning into a rabbit again." Inside, Shyla sits Hannah down at a table full of desserts and essentially bribes her. "Eat all of this," she says, "and tell me exactly what you saw." Hannah, with tears in her eyes, confesses the truth. Shyla was just too adorable. She couldn't help but follow the cute bunny. Hannah cries out that it's unfair for Shyla to keep such cuteness to herself, relieved that Hannah isn't horrified. Shyla makes her promise to keep it an absolute secret. As a reward, she transforms one more time. Hannah is in heaven, petting the soft fur and asking to hold her. In this tender moment, Hannah admits she never guessed Shyla was an oddity and sympathizes with how hard it must be. The conversation turns emotional as they bond over their siblings. Shyla mentions her sister back at the Rexy estate, wondering if she is being walked and bathed properly, since that used to be Shyla's job. Hannah relates, revealing she was separated from her own younger sister when she came to work at the castle and misses her dearly. As Hannah gently strokes her fur, Shyla thinks, if only everyone could look upon my sister and Callian with this same warmth. Determined to spread that warmth, Shyla transforms back and bursts into Callian's room. She tackles the confused puppy in a giant hug, declaring that she has decided to shower him with even more affection from now on. She tells him he needs to understand just how adorable he is. When Callian asks, "Am I really that adorable?" Shyla affirms it with her whole heart, calling him the most adorable thing in the world. But while they share this sweet, loving moment inside the warm castle, the scene shifts to the freezing darkness outside. In the shadows of the snowy night, glowing red eyes appear in the distance. The ominous growling of monsters echoes through the trees, signaling that a dangerous threat is gathering right outside the castle walls. Meanwhile, Shyla asks a hypothetical question. If Leon appeared at the banquet as a wolf, would everyone be shocked? Hannah admits they might be, but then she puffs out her chest and does a dramatic impression of a knight. She claims that if anyone dared to mock him, she would march right up and shout, "Show some respect for the proud heir of the North." Shyla bursts out laughing at Hannah's imaginary mustache-twirling bravery. Hannah adds that, ideally, the young master himself would one day stand tall and say, "That's right, I am Callian Greywolf." Shyla smiles, hoping with all her heart that he will find that pride. Determined to prepare for the future, Shyla heads out to the Outer Bailey for a shopping trip, accompanied by head maid Sandra and Hannah. It's her first time exploring the town, and she takes her duty as the future duchess seriously, inspecting the market and observing the people. The vibes are immaculate. Shyla even promises to take Hannah to the capital someday. Leaving Sandra in the carriage, the two girls sneak off for a secret mission. They visit a jeweler, where Shyla orders a necklace chain. She wants to turn Callian's ring into a necklace so he can carry it with him even in his wolf form. It's a sweet, thoughtful gesture. Afterward, Shyla tries to buy Hannah a gift to bribe her into keeping the rabbit secret, but Hannah refuses the expensive item. Instead, Hannah insists on treating Shyla. She excitedly runs off to buy some hidden culinary gems, street snacks from a nearby stall, telling Shyla to wait in the carriage. Shyla waits, leaning against a wall, smiling as she thinks about sharing the snacks with Leon. But then, the atmosphere shatters. A loud, jarring bell begins to toll. Clang, clang. Screams erupt from the crowd. People start running in terror, shouting one word, Deimos! From the shadows, terrifying monsters appear. Minions of the Demon Legion from the kingdom of Asha. Chaos consumes the street. Suddenly, Sandra rushes through the crowd, grabs Shyla, and throws her into the carriage. The driver whips the horses, and the carriage lurches forward. Shyla screams, "Wait!" Hannah didn't make it on. She tries to jump out, thrashing and fighting against Sandra's grip, screaming that they have to go back. But Sandra holds her tight, tears streaming down her face behind her glasses. She doesn't let go. Through the window, Shyla sees a glimpse of the horror behind them. Hannah is gone. Sandra, sobbing, tries to comfort Shyla with the lore of the North. She says that when a child passes, they go to play in the flower valleys before being reborn. She tells Shyla she must stop calling for her, implying that Hannah is already beyond their reach. The scene cuts to a black void. Shyla is trapped in a nightmare. In the dark, she hears Hannah's voice, but it's twisted and hateful. "You coward," the voice hisses. "You called me your friend, yet you left me to die." The voice screams that it's all Shyla's fault because she stood there like a fool. Gasp! Shyla wakes up in her bed, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. Beside her, a concerned little white wolf is watching her. Callian whimpers softly, asking, "Shasha, are you all right?" But the trauma of the day hangs heavy in the air. Shyla wakes with a gasp, her face wet with tears. The nightmare fades, but the horror lingers. Suddenly, she feels a warm, rough tongue on her cheek. It's Callian. He's right there beside her, looking heartbroken. He whimpers, telling her, "Please don't cry, Shasha. When you cry, I feel sad, too." Shyla realizes she's been in such a daze since the attack that she completely neglected him. Callian admits he waited for her, but when she didn't come, he came to find her. As Shyla continues to sob, overwhelmed by the reality that Hannah is truly gone, Callian tries his best to comfort her. He licks her tears away, saying he can taste her sadness, which tickles Shyla enough to make her stop. She hugs the little wolf tight, noting how heavy he's grown, and finds solace in his warmth. They fall asleep together, curled up for comfort. The next morning brings a small miracle. As Shyla wakes up, she notices something different about the sleeping puppy. "Gasp! Leon, you!" she exclaims. One of his floppy puppy ears is standing straight up. Callian wakes up, confused, but when Shyla shows him a mirror, he's ecstatic. "Wow! Shasha! My ear is standing up!" He yips, hopping around the bed in pure joy. Shyla beams, telling him it's proof he is growing big and strong. For a moment, the gloom of the previous day is lifted by this adorable victory. But the mood shifts drastically as we cut to the main hall. Duke Greywolf has returned, and it's not a triumphant entrance. He's covered in blood, dripping onto the floor from a severe wound. While his medics treat the injury, the Duke discusses the situation with his aide. The news is grim. The attacks are becoming more frequent, but worse, the Deimos monsters are changing. Unlike the mindless beasts of the past, these ones are intelligent. They use tactics, they hide, and for the first time ever, they retreated to fight another day. The Duke worries that if the monsters continue to evolve, his knights might not be enough. He even begins to doubt the old legends of the Black Wolf prophecy, wondering if his son, Callian, can truly be the savior they need. Meanwhile, Shyla is getting dressed, but her mind is still on the tragedy. She hears the maids whispering that the Deimos devoured several villagers and that a joint funeral is being held for those whose bodies, like Hannah's, were never found. The grief threatens to consume her again, but Shyla refuses to break. Slap! She hits her own cheeks to snap herself out of it. Her eyes burn with a new, fierce determination. She dismisses the maid, needing to be alone to steel herself. She goes to find Callian, but the little wolf is hiding behind a curtain. Sight start he trembles, admitting, I hate it when other people look at me. I don't want people to know who I really am. Shyla gently coaxes him out. She tells him he can't spend his whole life in hiding. With a dark intensity in her eyes, she vows, I'll make them all pay. She asks Callian to come with her to see his father, but he refuses, too afraid to face the Duke in his current form. So, Shyla goes alone. She enters the Duke's chambers and sees him resting, looking pale and bandaged. He assures her he will recover, but his expression is serious. He tells her there is something important she must know. I'd start it, concerns the threat looming over them all. The frozen land beyond the Hemlock Mountains. The Kingdom of Asha. The Kingdom of Asha. A political coup has shaken everything. The powerful House of Veramos managed to install their adopted son as the new king, Helgot Asha. But that's just politics. The real problem is the Legion of Demons, a terrifying military force from Asha that commands the monsters. The Duke reveals that the recent Deimos attacks weren't just random wildlife escaping a zoo. They were calculated. He actually spotted a high-ranking demon knight overseeing the chaos, meaning Asha is testing the North's defenses. He admits that while his knights are tough, fighting intelligent monsters who know how to retreat and ambush is a whole different ballgame. Side start he even starts to doubt the old prophecy of the Black Wolf, wondering if it's just a fairy tale for desperate people, and if his son, Callian, can ever live up to it. Shyla listens, trying to keep a poker face, but inside she's reeling. She's only been married a few months, and now she finds out a full-blown war might break out. Leaving the Duke's room, Shyla tries to pull herself together. She walks down the hallway and spots something suspicious, a girl sneaking into Callian's bedroom. Shyla immediately switches into Lady of the House mode. She grabs the girl's arm and demands to know what she's doing. It turns out to be Jessica Mallory, a baronet's daughter, who plays the innocent card, claiming she mistook the room. Shyla isn't buying it. She coldly informs Jessica that the young master forbids anyone but his wife from entering. Jessica apologizes and scampers off, but not before muttering insolent hag under her breath. The audacity! This encounter lights a fire under Shyla. She realizes Callian can't spend his whole life hiding, or people like Jessica will just walk all over them. She heads to Callian's room to give him a pep talk, but she finds his dinner tray untouched outside the door. She enters and finds Callian cowering under the furniture. He whimpers that he didn't eat because he was waiting for her, but he was too scared to go to her room because so many people walk past it. Shyla sighs, trying to comfort him, but Callian suddenly freezes. He starts sniffing the air. Sniff, sniff. His expression changes. He tells Shyla she has a strange, unpleasant scent on her. Before Shyla can explain, the source of the smell trots right into the room. It's a random stray puppy. Apparently, this shameless little thing followed Shyla all the way from the garden, wagging its tail and begging for pets. Shyla smiles, thinking it's cute, and reaches out to pet the friendly dog. Snap. In a split second, the atmosphere goes from 0 to 100. Callian's eyes start glowing with a terrifying light. He lunges at Shyla, screaming, "No! Don't touch IT!" He tackles the stray dog, pinning it to the ground with a ferocious growl. The timid crybaby Callian is gone. In his place is a jealous beast bearing his fangs. He roars at the puppy, "Stay away from Shasha! Don't you ever appear before her again!" Shyla watches in absolute horror as her sweet little husband screams, "I will kill you!" She stares at him, stunned, thinking, "This isn't the Leon I know." As Shyla stands there, paralyzed by shock, a footman rushes onto the scene. He yells at Shyla to stand back, calling Callian a wicked creature that needs to be driven out immediately before he causes more trouble. But the wicked creature isn't just barking. Callian turns his glowing blue eyes toward the servant and growls, in perfect human language, "Get lost." The footman freezes, terrified that the beast can speak. Shyla is equally stunned, not because he can talk, but because of the venom in his voice. Threatening to kill? Ordering people to get lost? Where on earth did her sweet, innocent puppy learn such thug-like behavior? Callian snaps and barks again, sending the terrified servant scrambling away in a panic. With the intruder gone, Callian instantly switches gears. The demonic aura vanishes, replaced by a pathetic, whimpering pout. He turns to Shyla, trembling as if he were the victim, and then, flop. He rolls onto his back, exposing his fluffy belly. Shasha, he coos, would you like to touch my paw pads? You can even touch my tail. Shyla stares at him, dumbfounded. She recalls the footman calling him a two-faced little beast and realizes the man was right. The way Callian snapped at that stray puppy wasn't animal instinct, it was calculated jealousy. She realizes with horror that Callian has been playing her like a fiddle, pretending to be a harmless, good boy just for her. Shyla refuses to fall for the belly trap. She glares at him and asks the million-gold question. Leon, have you ever bitten anyone? Callian dodges the question like a pro-politician. I would never ever bite you, Shasha, he says sweetly. When Shyla presses if that means he bites everyone else, he simply replies, I don't need anyone but you. Shyla is aghast. She asks if he attacked the stray dog because he felt betrayed by her petting it. Callian sulks, admitting he just didn't like it. Shyla snaps, telling him to stop pretending to be cute. Callian immediately turns on the waterworks, crying that he isn't pretending, but Shyla mentally awards him an Oscar for his performance. He has deceived her this whole time. Deciding to put her foot down, Shyla grabs him by the shoulders. She makes him promise never to bite or threaten anyone again, including small dogs, and bans him from using phrases like, I'll kill you. To ensure compliance, she drops the ultimate nuke. If you ever do it again, I'll start to hate you. The effect is instant. Callian's mind spirals into a terrified echo chamber of hate you, hate you, hate you. Trembling in fear of losing her affection, he frantically promises to be good and demands a pinky swear to seal the deal. Time passes, and Shyla realizes that getting Leon to leave his room isn't enough. She has to teach him how to exist in society. We see her diligently working on a piece of embroidery, a skill her father forced her to master to prove her humanity when she was younger. The maids whisper behind her back, gossiping about the monster of the clock tower and pitying Shyla for being married to a beast. Instead of ignoring them, Shyla confronts the rumors head-on. She admits, yes, Leon is a wolf. But then she smiles brightly, declaring that he is smart, dependable, and a husband she is truly proud of. Determined to bridge the gap between in the world, Shyla finishes her gift, a cushion cover, and brings it to Callian. She tells him that everyone will come to know how wonderful he is and that he doesn't have to hide anymore because she will protect him no matter what. She reminds him, you have to keep your promise to me too. Do you understand? But the plan backfires spectacularly. Instead of being encouraged, the pressure seems to break him. After that conversation, Callian retreats completely. He crawls under his bed, refusing to come out and refuses to eat any food, reverting exactly to the state he was in when they first met.